Thanks for listening to the Underdog podcast presented by the Riley Decker Companies. Please do us a favor and help us change and improve lives by subscribing and giving us a rating on the platform of your choice. Thank you. All right, welcome to the UDP, Coach. How we doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. We have Coach Stan Johnson, the men's basketball coach for Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. So actually we had Coach Cronin on, so the second LA basketball coach, and really excited, Coach, to have you on the UDP. Born in Liberia, which we'll talk about, which is in West Africa. Coach Johnson played his college basketball at Southern Utah and Bemidji in Minnesota State before embarking on a coaching career that would take him to such schools as Cal State Northridge, Utah, Drake, Arizona State, and Marquette. So on March 20th, Coach was named the head coach at Loyola Marymount and had a great first season with a winning record. And I know did a lot of things in the West Coast Conference, which is an incredible conference in college basketball. So needless to say, Coach, glad to have you once again on the Underdog podcast.
Awesome, man. I appreciate being here and appreciate you having me.
Sure. Wanted to start off, really talk about, the adversity you faced as a young man. I think at the age of 10 back in Liberia, you were held at gunpoint and went through a lot of adversity before coming to the United States. So can you kind of talk about, your childhood, and then we'll build your, kind of resume and other things that you've overcome?
Yeah, I was born in Liberia, West Africa. That's where my dad is from. My mom was from Montana. She's from the States. And my dad went to engineering school at Montana Tech. That's where he met my mom. They moved back there. And me and my siblings, two siblings, were born there. And at the age of 10 in 1990, a civil war kind of ensued and took over. And we were actually evacuated. We were very fortunate to get out the country. And we evacuated. I think we left with 3 bags and lost everything that our parents had worked, tirelessly for. And yeah, there was a moment there, when the rebels came into our town. We lived in a town called Bung Mines, which was a mining community, a German community. And they invaded that town. And I remember them gathering pretty much everybody at the school and sitting us all down. And, you're at gunpoint with any wide range of ages, guys that are older and kids that are 12, 13, 14, 15 carrying M16s. And obviously in that moment, you don't know what's going to happen. And, only by the grace of God were we allowed to leave that position and go to our homes. But you were just one instance from maybe something horrific happening, which happened all throughout that country.
Yeah. And then how did you, Stan, get out of, talk about, obviously that's a moment I can't imagine. I have a 6-year-old, couple years away going through that, an event, just can't really conceptualize what that would be like. But then you move past that and then talk about, what happened after that.
So, I can't remember weeks, months, how long it took, but obviously my mom was in touch, and I'm sure many families were in touch with the embassies. And, but the U.S. actually came in and landed a war jet on a mining strip because they had blown up the airports and all that. And we were hours away from an airport, but so a military plane that carries cargo and armored vehicles actually landed into that community and on a mine, which where my dad worked, the workers had to create a strip for this plane to land. So the plane landed on that strip and we were bussed up there. We left our dad behind. He didn't come because he didn't know where his parents were. He wasn't going to leave until he could find them. That's a whole nother story. But we got on this war jet and took off, and I believe we went to Sierra Leone, for what may have been a few days to a week. And then we ended up going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we had family. And we were there for a while. And then my dad united with us, and he ended up getting a job in Utah, and Utah became home.
Yeah, I know the transition, I'm sure, from Liberia to Utah. I've never been to Utah, but I can
Yeah,
imagine it's a little bit different there.
yeah, no, it's exactly the same. No, I mean, a stark contrast.
Yeah.
Especially in the '90s. I mean, I went from a place where it was all African Americans and a few European people to very few African Americans at that time. I may have been the only kid in the school, maybe my brother and I, that were African American. So that, it was a little culture shock, but all those things help you become who you become.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think you say nothing's been easy, but everything is a blessing. I had down, and it sounds like that was the way you looked at it then and now. And so then you go and use basketball, right, as a platform, playing at Southern Utah, then Bemidji State. Can you kind of talk about how getting into the game, I think you were playing soccer, if I remember correctly, or another sport, and then you kind of got into basketball, adjusted that in Utah, and then you use basketball as a platform to go to school?
Yeah, I mean, in West Africa, we played soccer and tennis. That's what I grew up playing. And soccer is the dominant sport there, and uh, played some tennis. But we never played basketball. When I came to the States, when I moved to Utah, like I said, I was probably the only brother in the class. So the first recess, they picked me first, thinking, man, this guy's got to be able to play. And I went along with it. I was so awful, man, that I was the last pick every time that year. And they were so mad once they knew I was the one they had to pick last. So I just made a commitment. I'm going to learn how to play this game. I'm going to teach myself the game because, number one, when you have different cultural experiences and you're new, and you have to find ways to connect. And the game, I saw that as a way for me to at least have some bond and something in common with those kids. And once I got good, friendships developed out of that. And so that's why, again, the games meant so much to me, because it really impacted my life and my experience. My experience probably would have been much different had I not, learned how to play the game and take that route. But it was a way for me to connect and have a common ground to stand on with, the kids in Salt Lake.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I mean, the Karl Malone, John Stockton days, those were in the 90s, right, too? So I'm sure basketball in Utah was a big deal.
Yeah, man. Karl Malone's my guy. John Stockton, I grew up with those teams and, watched them. I was actually at the game where Jordan hit that shot. I was in the last row, man. I'll never forget, he stole the ball from Karl on the baseline. And there's 19,000 people in what was then called the Delta Center. And I'm telling you right now, from where I stood, I may have been on the last row, you could hear that ball bounce. That's how quiet that gym was, because everybody knew what was getting ready to happen. But I was very fortunate and blessed to see that game. So, Mike, I developed a great appreciation for him as I got older. But when you're in Utah, I pulled for the Jazz, but he stole a couple of championships from us.
Yeah, no doubt. When he did that fadeaway crossover fadeaway for that game, that dagger, I remember that. I don't think I've ever met anyone that's been at a game of that capacity. That's an unbelievable experience. I'm sure that helped. Like you said, it was probably a devastating moment as a Jazz fan, but obviously Drew, was able to see that basketball experience, and you've had quite, Coach, transitioning to your culture and things where you're at now. But obviously there was things I know, it wasn't easy to get to Loyola Marymount, right? I mean, it was a grind, and you went to some places making less than $10,000 a year, at places, transitioning from, I think you said you rode a bus, you've carried bags, you've pretty much done it all, going from Cal State, Northridge, Utah, Drake, Arizona State, and Marquette. So before you've gotten the opportunity to be the head man at Loyola, can you kind of talk about the grit and the grind coming from, obviously we're learning about coming from Liberia, all the things you had to overcome as a young African-American in Utah, going to play basketball in college, and now you're coaching and you're trying to grit and grind your way, and you've had some success, and then you get, a new AD comes in and you get terminated, and, kind of a wild ride for a while. Can you kind of talk about the grit and grind of your college coaching career?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an awesome ride. I'm very thankful for my journey. And, sometimes in life, we're so consumed with the end result. We're so consumed with that end goal that we forget that the blessing and the beauty is really within the journey. And sometimes the journey is not going to be a straight line. It's not. It's not always successful. And the thing my life has taught me is that you learn and you grow a lot in the valleys. And oftentimes, all of us, we want the peaks. You can't get to the peak unless you've mastered the valley and you spend time in the valley. And my career has been just that. Again, I told you I come from humble beginnings. I'm not somebody who was an elite basketball player. I'm not somebody who went to a prestigious college, and no knock on where I went. I loved my time at Southern Utah. But I didn't play for a Hall of Fame coach. I didn't get that kind of start. I had to start at Bemidji State, where I finished my career, and I got a Jeff Gio, who's been a real blessing in my life, like the name you'll never hear, but absolutely one of the best coaches I've been around. He gave me my first break. He gave me a job as a full-time assistant coach. I think I made $10,000 to $12,000. I slept in his basement, and I had to be the ops guy. I had to drive the bus. We had to clean the dorms. You had to do everything, right? You had to get your guys ready for practice. You had to recruit. From there, I went to Southwest Baptist, which we made a little more money. I think I was making then $25,000 a year. I thought that was like $1 million. We had more scholarships, but same thing. Just me as the assistant and him as the head coach, and you had to learn every aspect of the business because there was no one else there. And sometimes in those settings, you don't understand what you're going through. You don't understand how beneficial it can be because you're always thinking about, man, I want to be a Division I head coach and I want to be a Division I assistant. You're always looking at the next thing. And my philosophy was always, man, I'm going to make the big time where I'm at. And you couldn't tell me when I was at Bemidji or Southwest Baptist, when I put those polos on, that felt like I was at Kentucky or Duke, man. And I tried to make the big time where I was at and tried to really take advantage of the opportunity I had in terms of all that I had exposure to do, knowing that hopefully someday it would lend itself to be something that I could really grow and learn from and would benefit me when I got in this position. From there, I went to Cal State Northridge. I was there for a year. Again, Cal State Northridge at that time worked for a guy by the name of Bobby Braswell, who at that time was a longer tenured African-American head coach in college basketball. Very, very organized guy. Did a heck of a job at Northridge. But I remember going in there and we had to sign like 6 or 7, I think 7 to 8 guys, maybe even more in the spring. That was when, you didn't have transfers that were eligible. And we did that, won the league, that very year. From there, I went to Utah and worked for Jim Boylan, who has played a huge role in my life. Coach Boylan's been the head coach of the Bulls and taught me everything about defense. We did some great things at Utah. But a few years later, you go from being the highest seed in the history of the Mountain West to being fired. From there, I went to Drake. You would consider that maybe a step down. I don't know. Went there and did some great things there, but worked for a guy by the name of Mark Phelps, who's, again, a close friend of mine. And Mark had been there maybe 4 years before I got there. And we thought we had done some good things. AD didn't think that. And 2 years into being there, let us go. And I got on with Herb at Arizona State, and same thing. Herb put 2 of the better years that he had there. And new AD came in, wanted a new coach, and that was that, right? And went to Marquette and enjoyed my time in Marquette, working for Steve Wojciechowski. I was there with him for 5 years, and then I got this job here. But all those experiences and the peaks and the valleys, the wins, the losses have helped shape my beliefs. And now I'm at a place where they've had great history in the past, small history, but really good. And we're trying to get this program back there. And again, I think my time here is much like my experiences in life. It's not going to be easy. I didn't take this job because I thought it was going to be easy. There's going to be some bumps in the road. We got off to a great start my first year. We finished third in the league. Hadn't been done in, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years. And thought we had a great team coming back, a really good team. And we were marred by injuries and some other self-inflicted things. And we didn't have the year we're supposed to. We ended up back in the valley. But it's been my experience that when those things happen, it's an opportunity to get better. And so I'm living my life experience right now. But all those experiences have helped shape what I believe has been my career and what I believe is going to lend to a very successful time here at LMU.
Yeah, and you say joy is in the process. I think that's so critical, and I learned that through listening to your content. And because right now at our place we're in a valley, so we're both in the valley together, brother. So we're kind of hitting a lull in our year from a company perspective, and we kind of talked about the same thing. Focus on the things you can control, the discipline to what we know, and kind of make sure we stick to our core values. And 3 of your core values, which actually kind of similar to ours, but it's selfless, and it's right behind you too, which I like: selfless, connection, and relentless. Can you kind of in the valley, what you're saying you're kind of right now, so off to a hot start, year 1, year 2, you hit a valley. When you're in the valley, how critical are those 3 core values, and how do you drive every single day to, like you said, not get too high at the highs and too low in the valley?
Well, I think, again, I'm not afraid to lose. Right. And that's a life thing. I'm not afraid to lose. I think when you're afraid to lose, you really limit yourself. I don't like losing. I hate it with a passion, but I'm not afraid to. I'm not afraid to put ourselves out there. I'm not afraid to go for it. And we're always going to go for it. And I think when things don't go well, there's so many lessons in that. And it kind of recenters you. And there's a refocus. There's, okay, what are the things that we're doing really well as a program, as an organization, myself? What are things that I have not done well? And usually it goes right back to those values. Okay. Ours is selfless, it's connected, it's relentless. And I didn't feel like our team was connected like we were the year before. I didn't think we were as relentless as we were the year before. And we weren't as selfless as we were in a lot of different aspects. So it's okay. Now, how do we put accountability to that? How do we make sure those things don't happen? Because every time you try to move up and every time you try to increase the expectation, or you're gonna come up against harder resistance. And when you come up against those things, the things that you believe in better be really, really strong. And you better live that. And so for me, it's this year, you know what? We got taught a lot of lessons. And if we can learn from that, if we can grow from that, then we have a chance to take off. And I think sometimes when people fail or they have a setback, they think that's, oh my gosh, we're doomed. No, I believe a setback is a setup for a comeback. If you're true to your values and you go back and you really have some introspection. And I've had a lot of time to look at myself, because everything starts with me. And there's a lot of things that I could have done better. And if you handle that better, then your growth becomes better. There's growth. So as you talk about your organization, I would say that to you. To me, you're saying you're in that valley. I'm saying there's great growth coming. You're not always going to be growing. And sometimes you got to step back to go forward. And that's just how it is. And if you look at anybody's career, you look at any great company, nothing has just been a straight shot. But the people who are not afraid to lose and who are willing to learn from that and grow and maybe try new things. And I know I've always done it this way, but maybe we need to tweak that. Those people, those companies, those teams, man, you got a chance to have some real success. It's so funny to me. Like, we all love these crazy stories. Man, look at this player. He won the Super Bowl. And, Kurt Warner, one day, at one point he was he was bagging groceries, right? We love the Super Bowl story. We love that story when it's complete, but we don't love it when we're in it going through it, right? Because we don't know what's coming, So I always say, like, sometimes you don't realize how close you are before you quit. You just got to keep going, and you got to keep getting better. And I'm more excited now than ever. And again, it's not going to be easy, man. I don't want it to be easy, and the competition's good too. But I think the Valley really, really, if you handle it correctly and you understand the lessons, you have a chance to take off, and that's exciting to me.
Yeah. I started in back of my mind when I'm listening to you, I'm hoping I invested in crypto. I was like, that's way down. Let's hope that linear line goes up on the crypto investment. I was just laughing. I'm thinking of the ups and downs, ride the wave there. But nonetheless, I think also what you just had said, Coach, resonates with our previous guest, Scotty Miller, with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He had won a Super Bowl and then he missed a ton of games last year. So he was talking last episode of like, hey man, I was on the high of the high, caught this huge, one of the biggest passes of Tampa Bay Bucks history in Green Bay to go to the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. And next thing you know, I'm out all year, come back the last 4 games. I'm not even in the rotation. Right. And so his standpoint, similar to you, is like, that year one, having a really good year, best year in like 15 years. And the next year, hitting adversity and it's just trying to keep that consistency. So I think that's something I'm seeing, resonating of really trying to stick to the core values, selfless, being connected and relentless. Something I also coach on the weekly culture meeting with the team. I thought that was really interesting, like coffee with coach, really talking about things such as having a success hotline where they have a pre-recorded message or what's happening in the world. Can you kind of go through, that element of your program? And I thought that was a unique thing about LMU.
Right. Well, I'm big on, like anybody, I think, I'm big on trying to build the best kind of culture you can. And it's so funny, like culture can be a very touchy subject. Sometimes when you talk about culture, it's people, especially when you're new, people act like there was no culture before, or, every place has some culture. I don't know anybody else's culture but mine, the one I want to create. And I'm not here to say one is necessarily better than the other. It's just what fits your personality. What do you think allows you to win? There's some places they don't spend any amount of time on that. And guess what? They still win. Right. But for me, trying to build something that is hopefully sustainable and trying to impact lives in a way that this is much greater than basketball, there has to be some level of consistency and intent in what you're doing. And I've been at, 8, 9 different schools, and not only in athletics, but even sometimes using universities as an example, you'll see all these words. This is what we believe in, and they're plastered all over the place. But if I asked you, can the employees verbatim give you what the university stands for, what your company stands for, most of the time the answer is going to be no, right? And if the answer is no, then you're creating a kind of culture in that as well. Culture happens, whether it's intentional or not. I try to make it kind of intentional. And what I mean by that is once a week, every Wednesday, it's our off day, we get together for an hour and we spend time on our culture. And our culture is not always just about us. The culture I want to establish here is, for example, in those meetings, we'll spend 10 minutes on what's happening in the world. So if we were in session right now, maybe the 10 minutes would be on the mass shooting that just happened in Texas and on gun violence. And, what are you guys' stance on that to get our guys thinking and talking that way? Because one of the things I want for our kids is to always be able to speak up and to speak intelligently on different subjects, not just basketball. I don't want people to see our kids as just basketball players. And as they go through the university and they're having these conversations in classes, I want them to have confidence to speak up and to have an opinion. And this is an opportunity for us to help our guys that way. and to get them confident and thinking in terms of other things worldwide, right? We'll spend the first 5 minutes on our academic feedback. And what that is I believe in positive peer pressure. So every week I'm going to give, Damian Douglas got an A on his biology test. Kelly Leopepe, he got a B plus on his math tests. Cam's killing it in philosophy. So all of a sudden now, there's some pride there. And our guys are like, you know what? Shoot, I've been in this meeting over 2 months. I haven't had my name called. I need to, and what that's lent itself to. I mean, I just got our grades. We had over 3.1 for the semester. That's the highest GPA in the history of the program.
Congratulations.
And it's those little acts, right? It's those little things, hopefully, that's creating that positive peer pressure through intent. In those meetings, I have this thing called it's a message that you can call. So they call a number. It's called Success Hotline. So we'll call Success Hotline. There'll be a message every day on Success Hotline. It could be about adversity or it's always something really good. And I'll ask the guys, hey, what'd you guys get out of Success Hotline over the last week? And conversations stem from that. And then we'll kind of finish off with what's happening in terms of our culture, and give them a chance to speak up. Where are areas we're lacking? What are the things we need to address? Maybe there's some issues going on within our team that we need to put out on the table. And then we'll have a plan, hey, this week we're going to spend 30 minutes on, a mistake or a mistake. In Hollywood, they call it a mistake when you mess up, and trying to get them, hey guys, we want mistakes. All right. If you make a mistake, it's a mistake. Hey, we'll get to do it again. That's what practice is for. I want you to be confident, so that's kind of how we build it, so we're constantly having those. Now, one thing I am going to change this year, I'm going to give them the first maybe 15 minutes before our staff even walks in there. Because sometimes what I found is if I'm in there, maybe they won't talk to each other the way they need to because they're worried about me or the staff. I'm going to give them the first 15 minutes to clear the air. If there's some things going on within the team that needs to be addressed, maybe they're more confident doing it that way, and they're more open with each other because they don't want to feel like a tattletale or whatever. So that'll be the new thing we implement this year is first 15 minutes, you guys got it, clear out whatever you need to get. When I come in, boom, we'll get started. So that's been our culture meetings on Wednesdays.
Yeah, I love it. I call them knowledge nuggets, and there is plenty in this episode already. I think making culture intentional happens no matter what. Like you said, just looking at it, and I love the Success Hotline. Might have to get that number from Ricky or from the director of ops and say, hey, let me check out what this is all about. I might institute that inside of our culture. I like that. I really do. That's a really good takeaway. And also, I think I was a long time ago in a football locker room, but I think that is important to give the players an opportunity to have a designated time to converse without anyone around. So I think that's a good, just kind of remember back to my playing days. Like I said, it's been a minute, but I think it is important to have a player-led locker room at times where they can handle their own issues and handle things. And that's usually strongest. And it sounds like that's part of the connection that you're talking about that maybe wasn't as strong in year 2 as it was in year 1. And that's what I love about college basketball. I went to the St. Peter's second round game. Goodness, who are they playing? Murray State. And just watching you can just tell, in my opinion, I'm not a basketball expert, but when I think a lot of coaches call it get touches, when they're picking people off the ground, they're high-fiving on the bench, and you just could see St. Peter's, man, they got it. Like they played well. They were disciplined, well coached, and you could just tell they loved each other. Truthfully, like you could just watch in an arena. I took my son there. And I'm like, these guys are special. I never knew who St. Peter's was, but then it made sense to me as I watched them in person. I'm like, man, they might win next round. Sure enough, they beat Purdue. And it's just like they just kept going and going. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I like in this day and age is that if you create a really strong culture, it can overcome the talent deficiency as what the experts would label. So I think that's ever so important there. How do you, I was curious too, like, how do you evaluate yourself or players? Like, what are maybe the core principles? Start with you. Like, how do you evaluate yourself as a coach?
Well, I think, again, it goes back to my whole thing is, am I living what I'm preaching? Am I doing what I expect of our guys? So, we go back to selfless, connected, relentless. Am I selfless? Am I connected? We talk about relationships before championships. How are my relationships with each guy on the team? Am I relentless in my pursuit of getting this program turned around? And there's so many things that encompasses. It's how am I, from an X and O standpoint, putting us in the best position to be successful? Am I really studying that to the level I need to be? From a culture standpoint, am I developing that right way? Am I holding people accountable the right way? Am I holding myself and our staff accountable? So everything for me starts with me. And again, like the year we had, that's on me. That's not on anybody else. That's on me. That's leadership. It's easy to point the fingers. And sure, everybody has some responsibility in that. But the bottom line is, no one is here unless I allowed them to be here. No one did the things they did unless I allowed them to do that. And I think if you can be honest with yourself, then you have a chance. And that's raw honesty. And I think that's good leadership. It's being able to say, hey, you know what? The buck stops with me. And I can blame Johnny for not performing. Well, guess what? I brought Johnny here, or whoever that may be. This play's not working. Well, why is it working? Is it the player, or is it doesn't fit your system? So I think always going through all your stuff with a fine-tooth comb and being accountable and making sure the things you're doing make sense, I think is important. So that's how I do it. It's every day, every season at the end, I do a DLC. That's what I'm in the middle of doing. That it's defense, offensive culture. So 3 things defensively we must get better at that we were very bad at last year, and how we're going to do that. 3 things offensively we need to improve at, and how we're going to do that. 3 things culture-wise, 3 things in the weight room, 3 things academically, 3 things in the training room, right? So that's my blueprint for the season moving forward. So every week now I must look at that. Are we doing those things? Are we on track? Okay, then I do the same thing for each player. Here's the development plan for each guy, the DOC for them. 3 things for their offense, 3 things defensively, 3 things from a culture standpoint, academically, weight room. Okay, here's the plan. So here's the individual plan to get them better defensively, offensively, culture-wise, weight room, academics. So there's the areas we have to address, and then what's the plan? What does that look like? And that's studying that and then being accountable to that. So that's our blueprint for each player and our whole program as we move forward. So that's kind of how I do it. And then it's the matter of holding yourself and making sure you're staying true to that. And as you get good at something, it may be, transition defense. Okay. And you can never be great at transition defense or master it, but all right, we're good at that. Maybe we can add something. But I think you can't get great at everything. You can't accomplish everything. It's finding what are the most important things now. For us, I call it, we say win. What's important now? What's important now? So there's 3 things defensively, offensively, from a culture standpoint, fundraising standpoint. These are 3 things we can improve on. And here's the plan to do that. And then I'm accountable for that. The players are accountable for that. Now I got to hold them to that. And I've got to hold myself and our staff to those things. And when we evaluate our season next year at the end, we have to be able to look at that and go, you know what? Boom, improved. And if I'm being completely raw and honest, and one of the reasons I'm upset with myself is some of the things I have on there now, I'm comparing to our DOC at the end of last season, and it's the same thing. Well, guess what, man? That's on me, right? That's how I do it.
Yeah, no, it's humbling, very self-aware, taking ownership, and love the win. What's important now, and the 3 DOC. I mean, great, whether business, life, or athletics. I think those are all tangible things. Looking at those top 3 of those, significant categories or KPIs in business, and really focusing on top 3 things, and then make sure it's not the same 3 things as the year before. So I think those are really, really good things there. And man, I most importantly, Coach, I know you're making really productive and sustainable young men that are going to enter in when the ball goes flat, which it does for all of us, unfortunately. Except playing maybe old man rec ball for me at the YMCA. So still trying to ball, not like I used to. But it does come flat. And it sounds like to me, all these core values and the different things you institute are making these young men ready for life after basketball. So that's fantastic, and really appreciate you sharing everything you did today. And is there any way for anyone that's listening on our platform, any great ways to follow you or the program on any social handles? Would love to share that.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I think mine is at LMU Coach Johnson. So I'm on there, and I believe it's the same handle for Instagram. So that's the best way to follow us and our program.
Yeah, and great Twitter follower. So I got on Twitter like 2 years ago. I was late to the program, but man, I love following you on Twitter. And after a person of ours, Ryan Hawk, you were on the Learning Leader podcast, and it made a big impact, and you were a big target for us. So we were really thankful for you coming on this platform and so many different things. Can't wait for this one to release, and I know the best is ahead for you and in your program, Coach. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. It means a lot.
All right, thank you so much.
Great call.
Thanks for listening to the Underdog Podcast. Please subscribe and rate our podcast on the Apple and Google Podcast apps. Leave a 5-star rating and send our Twitter handle a screenshot of your rating at Underdog Pod with your shirt size for a chance to win a free t-shirt. See you next week on the UDP.